Hi, welcome to the Business Perspectives session. We're about to start with Phil Oakley of Kornit. Good morning, Phil.
Morning, Jack. How are you?
I'm very well. Sorry if I made a jump there.
That's all right. No problem.
Good to see you. We've just been doing a little introduction over in the Welcome with Colin, talking about the potential for this market. And I think this is the perfect introduction to you to talk about Kornit and your view on the industry and where it will be going.
Yeah, great. I think what's really interesting is that for the last 12 years or so, I've been involved in the large format industry. So I know the sound and digital world very well, and large format sound and display graphics. And really over the last, say, 4 years, we've started to become involved in the textile industry. What's pretty frightening, I think, with the textile industry is that it's probably less than 1% digital. It's a very large market, very fragmented market. Roughly sized, depending on who you listen to, about 1.4 trillion of a market. So it's a big beast that has unfortunately in some areas got nicknames that are not really becoming of it. You know, even yesterday I was speaking to university that were talking about dirty textile factories, the rag trade, if you like, and it's also then got a real cottage industry feel to part of it as well. Then you've got what everybody knows, unfortunately seen in the press this year in terms of the penny pinching world of fast fashion. So it's a big market, and I think a lot of the trends that many other areas of print have seen, this analog to digital transformation that so many industries have seen, so many in print. There's certainly the majority of the industry is not yet digital, so the opportunity is fantastic for growth. And so Kornit see three key trends changing that, which have certainly been magnified and accelerated because of COVID this year. I think, first I would say social media. If social media arguably is the largest route to market for shopping and on-demand shopping and shopping in general, that certainly that we see today. You look at TikTok, that probably 12, 18 months ago, a lot of us have never even heard of, and probably is at the moment the fastest growing shopping channel for on-demand fashion. And it works very differently than all of the social media. So things are moving very fast. I think the one thing through social media that's really important is it drives a different level of transparency for brands. So for any fulfiller, any production, commercial print organization working with brands, transparent, they want authenticity. Certainly you look at the majority of users of the growth of social media being Generation Z and millennials, kind of the overall environmental and ethically focused companies they want to work with, it is very much at the forefront. One interesting thing that I was talking about yesterday is that how many glasses of water, how many liters of water does it take to make a t-shirt? And I was talking to a whole board of university yesterday, and they were astounded at the amount, 2,700 liters.
Really? Wow.
One
t-shirt.
Which is so that's to make the fabric of one t-shirt. And that's the equivalent to what you and I would drink in 1 year. That's before you put any kind of print on that t-shirt. So it's certainly a challenge, and I think the generations on social media have been, pushing that to the forefront. That how do we change these attitudes to consumption? The biggest thing also that you've seen that this industry, or should I say that a generation of people, is social media is all about personal expression. And so a personalized product or a personalized garment typically will keep longer. Yeah, so we'll probably use less and consume less. So attitudes are certainly changing from that perspective. Secondly, then e-commerce. You know, we kind of look at e-commerce, and I think the UK have led the way. You know, we've certainly been the pioneers, if you think way back to when the internet started, and the kind of penetration and use in our everyday life permeates, the internet permeates everything. But you look at the pandemic and look at the US. The US saw internet penetration, internet shopping grow more in the first 3 months of the pandemic than in the previous 10 years. So you had 10 years of growth in 3 months. And Microsoft CEO has recently stated that even their own organization has seen 2 years of transformation, digital transformation, in the last 2 months. Now, if they've seen digital transformation, then, oh my word, what's the rest of us still got to go through? So e-commerce is only going to continue to accelerate, but that in itself provides major challenges, right? In that the textile industry, if it's largely still analog, is not keeping up with the front end of digital that is accelerating. So it's very easy to create the shopping channels at the front end, but the whole issue of supply chain disruption, the gap, so the gap in the middle between the front end of e-commerce, social media, to real physical supply chain management and back-end production and printing of whatever it is, whether it's a t-shirt, a hoodie, a shirt, whatever it may be, that's still a major issue. And it's still a major issue with regards to supply and demand, which is today still really the majority of what sports manufacturing, garment production, fashion, that's how it operates. Where our industry focuses on is a demand and supply. Kind of turns it on its head, turns it backwards. And so that, you know, we see a lot of brands now that are talking to us about a stockless model. I was talking to a major lifestyle, kind of an adventure brand. I can't name them, unfortunately, but they have a collection of brands that we'll know very well, that are kind of focused on, if you like, kind of winter-based kind of sports or mountaineering kind of brand. The question that they asked us was, how do we have a stockless fulfillment? We have a number of garments that are blanks, that are blank from hoodies and t-shirts and everything else. And even now with the challenge of Brexit, a lot of their direct-to-garment printing is actually done in Europe, and they're saying and then shipped into the UK. And the conversation that I've been having with them is, how do they have UK fulfillment with fulfillers that they don't hold any stock, but it directly connects to their front-end e-commerce, is rerouted, printed, production, packed, and shipped to the customer. So I think the gap is a really important part as this industry scales and really continues to scale in an industrial fashion. The gap between digital front-end, social, shop and e-commerce, which is accelerating. That's accelerating sometimes a lot too fast to the physical supply chain and back end, and therefore you really need a digital middle and back end to keep up with this transformation at the front. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're kind of saying it's more, in a way, it's more about the workflow than the technology to a large extent.
I think for a long time, yeah, I absolutely is definitely it's about the workflow. But I think for a long time, while an industry has grown, it's grown like many industries grow. The foundations that you started with is not necessarily going to be fit for purpose to when you get to an industrial scale.
Yeah.
But an industrial scale at a average job size of 1. So, you know, if I look at our HD technology customers that we kind of work very closely on their production, you know, if I look last week at one particular customer who has 4 Kornit avalanches and did 28,000 impressions in a week with the average job size of 1. And therefore, those are individual customers submitting jobs. How do you then manage the complexity of that order management and fulfillment in a really efficient manner for brands, for consumers, or for other commercial entities the way you may be doing a trade job? So 3 different types of jobs and customer. The complexity of that can only be done through software, algorithms, very, very efficient workflow to connect the digital to the physical actual production of the printing. So yeah, that's a real challenge, and actually that's where we seem to spend most of our time at the moment with customers who are scaled, of helping them with the complexity of routing jobs, you know, and certainly then when you also even get to the personalization. So yeah, workflow is going to be key.
Okay, so how big is this market? Where's this growth that you're talking about? Well, can you be a bit more specific of what's happening in this market?
Yeah, I'll give you difficult to kind of size overall.
Sure.
You know, you start to look at, you can size by category of product, and then start to look from that to look at how those things are customized and printed today. So I suppose the largest category of product would be t-shirts. T-shirts in the UK in 2019 were roughly about 500 million t-shirts we manufactured and sold in the UK. Now, all right, a significant part of that would have been then exported. But 500 million t-shirts, it's a $11 billion, sorry to quote the dollar, but it's the report that we're giving you in dollar. It was in 2019 an $11 billion market.
That's just t-shirts.
Just t-shirts.
Wow. Okay.
What's interesting in that is only about 6% of those were customized digitally, but that 6% represented a $1 billion DTG market in the UK. So there's 2 things there. You know, the value of a digitally printed garment is typically more valuable than either one that's not printed or one that may be printed in an analog technology. And 2, the opportunity for growth is, if it's only 6%, is phenomenal. When you consider what we've been talking about before, which are all the environmental issues, the supply chain disruption. Again, COVID has magnified the issue this year, in that, you know, which is horrible, but actually, you look at the biggest part of our industry, the kind of events and tours, which typically would be a small part may be DTG, and a large part would still be screen printing. You know, and we complement those technologies very, very well. You know, if I look at some customers, they typically always think, oh, is one replacing the other? And the honest answer to that is, to some degree, yes. But to a large part, no, they will complement, because the types of work you will do on a screen will be volume of one particular garment for one customer. Whereas actually what we're seeing through social media is those are being less and less. The jobs are getting smaller and smaller, more colorful, more complex, and therefore it's only digital can suffice there. So yeah, so just on t-shirts alone, it's a significant size of a market.
Okay, so that is a huge opportunity. And I'm thinking, is now, in the middle of the crisis that we're in, is now sort of the right time to be getting into a whole new sort of area like this?
I'm obviously going to say yes.
Good.
I'm obviously going to say yes, but I think I know we have a customer I'm sure I'd like to introduce now, because I think it's better for them to kind of talk openly about, why now, why DTG in an industry that they're not currently maturing, and also then know why Kornit as well. I think it no better really than a customer to kind of, we have to ask those questions and talk about those things, because investing for growth in a time that is really tough is brave, but I think that they see the time is right. So yeah, I'd love you to introduce James of TayPrint.
Indeed. So I've asked you the question, but I think we have James Miller of TayPrint. Hopefully will come on screen with us now. And I will put that question initially to him, but I guess you guys can work that through. James, are you going to join us? Well, I'm sure he'll be here in a moment.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about TayPrint?
Oh, there we go.
Morning, James.
Good morning. Morning, Jack. Phil, good morning.
I hope you. I'm sure you were listening there. I asked Phil the question about whether the market opportunity seems fantastic and definitely worth trying to get into, but is at this time in this crisis the right time to do that? And we both thought, well, it's probably best to ask somebody that's in the process of doing that. So we've introduced you, James. So I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about your company, and then we'll come on to that question in a bit, I guess.
Okay. TayPrint is basically a commercial printer. We mainly do trade type products, and it's a 40-year-old company. TayPrint started with t-shirt printing in a little room, and it's all been traditional through the years. About 12-15 years ago, I suppose, TayPrint started converting over to digital printing of one sort or another, whereas they were doing, let's say, roadside type products, screen printing them, which is amazing. That was converted to the new digital machines, to print billboards and roadside, posters and what have you. But this was all done on, fairly antiquated equipment, or I guess it was new technology at the time, let's say 12, 15 years ago, the digital was just starting, and it was not really cost effective, I don't think. And only more recently, the equipment's become more and more reliable and become more cost effective. And I suppose 2 years ago, we converted completely to latex technology printing. So all water-based. We realized that we needed to be a little bit more green, and everything was changed over to latex machines. And so that pushed us in the direction of a complete change, actually, in our factory. And then our t-shirt business was just not economic. I mean, we were doing it old style, big carousels, 6-color carousels, and other individual, single color printing. It's messy. It just was horrible in my eyes, at least. And as Phil mentioned earlier, this was amplified by this latest crisis, where customers just basically disappeared, and we were sitting around thinking, what the heck do we do now? This is t-shirts, not economic. The business has dropped off. What should we do? And I started looking around and investigating varying different manufacturers of direct-to-garment printing, which mirrors the type of technology that we've got, printing our, banners, posters, whatever. It's basically a water-based, environmentally friendly system. And eventually I came to, actually it was a company, Amaya, which is the distributor for Kornit in the UK. And I'd been on various factory visits, looking at other equipment, etc. And but all in all, I was struck by the completeness of the actual Kornit system. You put the t-shirt in one side, and it comes back at you, and it's done. There's not a dozen other machines you're messing with, to get the product to come out as a finished article. And that's really, the story so far. We're about a 2 million a year company, and the t-shirt business, dropped from being the major part of TayPrint down to less than about 8% of its turnover. So traditional screen printing just slowly got less and less and less and less. And we saw the opportunity to go into digital printing and try to bring that back up again. And I think, your question, is this the right time? Well, yeah, we're brave. we just thought, that we can't go on any longer. We closed the department, just one day, that was it. We've had enough. And it was not quite, lifting everything up with a forklift and dropping it in the skip, but that's pretty well what we did. And we're just waiting for the arrival of our new machine now.
Wow.
So that was just a decision that, anybody can make a decision about things, but we felt that because of these changes in the use of the internet as opposed to the old sales method, sales guys calling people up and walking around to try and rustle up business, that just is not the way it seems to be going.
Okay.
I think James is being very modest. I think he's been very modest about TayPrint. I think they're being very bold. I think one thing that you may come on to, James, actually is not just across your Kornit technology, but the investment and understanding of workflow that will piece together the other parts of the business, from how do you bring jobs in and how do you route them, whether it's sign and display, whether it's DTG. That's in terms of putting one workflow system in that will manage that, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a prosumer, or whether it's a trade customer. That's really interesting.
Well, one of the things, obviously, that we found, I mean, we wanted to, expand the business. We were looking for more customers, and we realized that under the present system, I mean, this was, basically a corner shop business, and it's grown up over 40 years. I mean, everything was done manually, bits of paper everywhere. It was horrendous. And so we looked around for software packages, that we could apply to try and connect sales, with our workflow and be able to get the shipping out and actually have customers track their product from when they order it to when it shows up at the door. Eventually we, settled on Custom Gateway, which, funnily enough, was the software that that Kornit was actually using on their machines. It was just a coincidence, and we were using that.
Sorry to cut. A bit like the Remington story. We liked it so much we bought the company.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the idea for getting the Custom Gateway, obviously, when I did visit Amaya, they said that they were using Custom Gateway, and I thought, well, okay, well, that's interesting. Obviously, I've made the right choice. And then later on, the Kornit actually, purchased Custom Gateway. So the whole thing, miraculously integrated, by luck really for us. But the actual software itself, the reason we chose it was that I felt that it could integrate our sales and also integrate with all our other equipment as well, because the Kornit machine operates very similar to the HP latex machines that we have here. And so that software basically deals with our entire sales, interface, where it goes to our trade portal, or even our own salesmen get on our trade portal, log all the jobs. They automatically get assigned and ripped to the machines. that term ripping is basically converting the digital file into the machine code file to enable the machine to print it. So actually all our jobs then go into queues on the machine that has the space at the time. And then the operator of the machine just loads up the job and it prints it, when we need to. But that cuts out a huge amount of work from studio staff, and we had 4 or 5 people in a studio looking and improving at artwork all day long, and then passing that off to somebody else who would spend hours collating all the jobs and then sending them to the equipment. So we've really saved ourselves a huge amount of work by employing this software.
So that's sorry. I mean, that's really interesting that so from the coal face, as it were, you've identified the benefits and the flexibility of that software. I'm interested to put it to Phil as sort of you liked it so much you bought the company. So what is it that you saw in Custom Gateway specifically, alongside what James is saying, but from a more corporate level?
I think it's what we were talking about before, is that we've seen the growth of Kornit, which is an 18-year-old business in industrial textile printing. Yeah, but then what you've also seen on the other side is this acceleration of online shopping. Yeah, which, as I said, we're very mature, and you can only see that accelerating. You look at the largest growth areas of commerce is online shopping, and like I said, the pandemic has just magnified that. So the challenges as we get much more sophisticated online is bridging the gap between that digital, that what is obviously clearly an accelerating digital front end workflow and engagement from a consumer to personalize to, or even just buy a product. With the click of a thumb, 2-3 clicks of a thumb. If you think now, just with the gateway payment systems of PayPal and others, you just go click. You're not even able to add your card details in. So buying is very easy, but then routing and the complexities of that to production, so that you still end up with a finished garment that's quality, that's turned around very often the next day. I think that's the other part of it, is that there's an immediacy expectation now with the growth of Amazon Prime and delivery services. Look at the delivery services that there are now that there weren't 10 years ago. How many deliveries do you take a day? Because those services are there. So there's an immediacy demanded, and only software is going to make sense of that, to be able to work at speed with job sizes of one. So that's what we saw, is that how do we simplify this really what can be a really complex workflow on bridging the gap between the digital and the physical. That's what we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, you're
clearly worked.
Right.
Yeah, go on, James.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that was one of the things that, when we were looking around trying to, find customers, we soon realized that, with this particular software, we were able then to link up with other Shopify accounts or sellers on the internet and have a direct link with them, so that, their customers would choose their T-shirts, hoodies, whatever, press buy. That job would immediately come, into our system. It doesn't, touch a human, as it were, and it goes directly to the printer. And then all we see is a job queue there, which you put the next T-shirt on, scan the barcode, we print the product, it gets packed, Royal Mail picks it up, and the fella's got it the next day. And it was the ability to go out there and then actually search for other customers who are possibly already online selling stuff, and then we hook up with them, or they hook up with us, directly, or we sell the concept again to people who are just starting businesses online, and
and I think
sell their product.
I think it's James. Sorry to cut across you. A slight delay then in this. I think James will have seen also that it's much more than just t-shirts now. The world of direct-to-garment printing has evolved significantly in that, you can now print a garment that includes a digitally very intricate neck tag in the center in terms of pre-garments and kind of sleeves, hoodies, leggings. One of the significant growth categories of this year has been the athleisure market, and that is phenomenal in terms of polyester-based printing on garments. So this just it's kind of exploding out in terms of the category. I think we've lost James.
Well, we're coming towards the end of this session. There were a couple of questions from the audience I would like to put to you before we end, but I would say also this is a great opportunity to carry on the conversation with Phil and James over on Kornit's booth after this event. Philip Osmond, I believe, is also there to answer questions.
There's another photo over there.
Yeah, over there. Well, it's a sort of virtual physical walk. Somebody asked a great question. I must put it to you. You talked a bit about social media being a great route to market, and you mentioned TikTok, and people of our age probably go, So that's an important part of how this moves forward, of course. But how would you advise targeting maybe an older generation that are perhaps also moving into this area?
Well, I think first of all, we kind of do the older generation slightly disservice. Facebook's been around quite some time and still a very large shopping vehicle and route to market, and people use it in the way that it keeps connecting family and friends. I'm sure there's always the downside to social media, but let's keep it positive. And the family and friends are using it a lot, but at the same time, it's very much a large shopping vehicle. But with DTG, I think, where the opportunity certainly for TayPrint is they will have a lot of corporate and commercial customers who will also have workwear. One of the other segments of category of DTG this year that's grown is workwear. And those are typically average job sizes of 10. So you've got very small businesses, tradesmen that need workwear and DTG. And so the opportunity to cross-sell application, whether it's sign and display, vehicle graphics, or workwear into a customer base that TayPrint already have. So there are lots of different routes to market. Social media is the explosion and is the primary that we see at the moment. But workwear, we saw customers doing PPE. We certainly enabled our pallets to be able to do face masks and personalization of face masks. So I think there's, when you really start to look at the technology and what it can do, and the fact that it's got the environmental credentials of baby wear, restaurants, there's a lot of avenues that you can take it, which are not just social media.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for that, both of you. James, really looking forward to perhaps talking again when the system's in and you've moved on in a few months to come. So that'd be really interesting to revisit. Please do carry on the conversation with both Phil and James over on the Kornit booth. There's an opportunity now to grab a coffee. There's a coffee room where you can also chat with some of the presenters and other panelists. And we'll be back for the technology session at 10:45 with Epson. So thanks very much, Phil and James.
Thank you very much, Jack. All right. Thank you. Bye now. Bye-bye.